Hey you guys, Allie here. Welcome back to So Can You. Today I am going to be trying out a new video format while I make the Jasper joggers. And if you follow along with this step-by-step tutorial, so can you. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is the version of the Jasper joggers that I'll be making today. I'm going to blend the color block joggers with the regular joggers. So I'm going to be doing color block on the front and solid joggers on the back. So the pieces that I'm going to need, pattern pieces that I'm going to need, are going to be the front color block piece. I'm going to need to cut the middle color block piece. I'm going to cut two opposites. The bottom color block piece, I'm also going to cut two opposites. And then you need the back piece. Now, if you were doing color block all the way, you would cut four opposites here and four opposites here. And then you would cut the front color block piece and the back color block piece. But I'm going to do a solid for my back. So I went ahead and cut the just the regular the Jasper joggers back piece here. This pattern does call for knit fabric, so I'm using today, this is Million Dot French Terry, and the version that I'm going to be doing is the elastic version, where we have elastic ankle cuffs and on the top. So I've cut my elastic already as well. So you need a waistband elastic piece and two leg cuff elastic pieces. So these are going to be the same here. All right. So that's what we need to make our joggers. And so I'm going to move some of this out of the way and let's talk about what the first steps in construction are. So I'm going to pull the elastic out and the back piece for now. And the first thing that we're going to do is focus on the construction of the front of our joggers. We're going to lay this together here so that we can see what the joggers will look like. There you go. Perfect. Is that right? I feel like this is wrong. Yeah, no, that's right. Okay. Had my mind going crazy for a second. Okay, perfect. So they should line up perfectly here. And what we need to do before we do anything else is we need to prepare this to be all sewn together. So what we're going to do is flip this, line these up. We are going to sew these together here, here, and here. And then eventually we're going to connect these bottom pieces here so that we have one full piece. So our step one is to lay out our middle blocked pieces right sides together and sew this first seam closed. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so now what I've done here is I just serged these two seams here. I am using a serger. If you don't have a serger, no worries. You can absolutely just sew with your sewing machine a zigzag stitch right here. You want to make sure that you are using a stretch stitch, whether it's a zigzag or some have those like lightning bolt stitches, those are really helpful. You just don't want to use a straight stitch because these need to stretch. Okay? All right, so our next step, then I'm going to flip these over. Flip this over. And there is an optional step here, which is to top stitch. And for me, top stitching is not an optional thing. So I am going to top stitch mine, and this is a newborn size, so this crotch does look a little bit small so if you're making like a 3T or so, you're gonna have about this much room. Just keep that in mind. If you're making bigger sizes, you're gonna have a longer piece. Why can I not think of this? The color block top piece. You're gonna have a longer crotch line here before you get to your middle piece here. But this is a newborn size that I am making for my new nephew who we're expecting very soon. And so that's what this one looks like. But what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch down this seam, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so what I did was I just went ahead and top stitched here and here, and for me, top stitching is not something that I consider optional. This just it lays so much nicer, and I feel like the finished product looks nicer. And you will have a little bit of seam allowance here, so you didn't have to go quite all the way to the edge. So we'll be able to cover this up when we sew the fronts to the backs. So the next step is to line these up here. And if you are someone who likes to clip so that things don't get mixed up, you can clip these. And then what we will do is we will take this back to the serger or the sewing machine, whichever you're using, and we will sew these seams closed as well. Okay, so I went ahead and sewed here and here closed, and the next option is that we will want to top stitch these. Now, where you top stitch it is totally up to you. I will say if I was doing a different color on the bottom, I would probably flip this up and, oh, that's cute still. I would probably flip this up and top stitch right here. But considering that these are the same color that I picked, I think I'm gonna leave it like this, and I'm gonna top stitch this seam right here so that you can see, because I use the matching thread for the blue color, so I think I'm gonna do it here as well this time. So I'm gonna go ahead and top stitch this, and it'll be right here. But if you were doing another color, you could totally top stitch it like that. That is, man, I really kind of like this look better. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that, because that's the way it was intended. Okay. Yes, because when I do the waist, the elastic, we'll have some more of the contrast thread on there, so that'll work. Okay, so what I'm gonna do next is I've got these flipped up, and I'm gonna just top stitch them down right here so they lay nice and flat. Okay, so now that I have top stitched this little piece, I feel like I definitely made the right decision in sticking with that top stitch. What we'll do next is prepare to sew the back to the front. And if you guys have top stitched this and it looks a little like wonky, don't worry. What you can do is like if it looks a little like curved, don't worry. All you need to do is take your iron and put it on the steam setting and set it over the top and just steam. Don't press down on it, just hold it above it and steam, and it'll just relax these top stitch seams just a little bit so they're not quite so wavy. I know sometimes that can happen, especially with the stretchier fabrics. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take the back piece and we're going to lay it down right sides together on top of the front piece, and we are going to line up the bottoms here. So we're going to line up the bottoms. Get some clips. All right, so we're going to line up the bottoms. We're going to line up this crotch seam and the side seams. And depending on how good you are with your seam allowances, you may have to, like mine was just a little bit off here, so I might have, I lost a little bit in my seam allowance, which is okay, no worries. I'm just line it up as close as we can, and get ready to sew these side seams together. Okay, awesome. Okay, now let me get 2 more clips. Okay, so I got 2 more clips to clip this part here. And here. All right, so what we've got here, so we've got our pants, we've got the back. Now, if you are doing the color block back, you will have some seams here. You'll notice that I do have seams. It's not beautiful, but it is what it is. No worries. I have seams on my front side. So what we're doing now is we are attaching the front to the back. So when we take this to our serger or our sewing machine, we're going to be sewing 3 seams. We're going to be sewing down one side, down the other side, and then we'll be sewing this whole crotch seam closed. All right. Okay, so here are our joggers all constructed. I just sewed these side seams and this crotch seam. I do want to show you guys something. Let me see if I can zoom in here without messing up. You know what? I'm just going to pick this up. I did, hopefully this will show. Can y'all see that? I did change my, if you're using a serger, I did change my stitch length through the crotch seam. Normally I am like a 3-ish, and I change between 1 and 2 for the crotch because this is just such a heavily like stretched area no matter what size you're making. So I just want to point that out, that I do decrease my stitch length right there. And this is what the front looks like. Super cute. So the last thing, the last like steps that we have to do is to add the elastic and then top stitch the elastic down. And we've got elastic that goes around the waist and around both ankle cuffs. So I'm going to pull these back and we're going to prepare our elastic. So here's our waistband elastic, and then here are both of our ankle cuff elastics. There is a cut chart on the pattern pieces, or if you're using the projector file, there's a cut list on the projector file as well. That tells you what length to cut your elastic. And if you're new to cutting elastic, what you do first is, let me see if I have my little, here it is. When you're cutting elastic, here's the elastic that I cut. When you're cutting elastic, you want to take it in your hands and you want to stretch it. Stretch, stretch, stretch. So you want to kind of like pre-stretch it so that when you stretch it later, it doesn't like stretch out. So you want to give it some good stretches, and then when you're ready to cut, you don't stretch, you just lay it flat and you measure and cut. So you just lay it flat, measure and cut. Okay, so with your 3 elastic pieces, what you're going to do is you're going to take the elastic and you're going to overlap it by a 1/4 inch. And you will use a zigzag stitch right here to close this. So you'll have 1 waistband and 3 for the elastic. 1 waistband and 2 pieces for the ankle cuffs. And you'll just take these to your sewing machine and do a zigzag stitch. Okay, so now that I have gotten these closed, these are connected here, here, and here. We are going to get ready to attach them to our pieces. Now, what I like to do is I like to quarter this. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So I'm going to mark points at each of these side, each of the 4 quarters. So this back piece is going to be my first point. Then I'm going to use this little marker and I'm going to mark a point here. Then I'm going to match these up and mark another midway point here and here. Okay. And then with the leg bands, I'll just mark 1 point, just 1 midway, the leg cuffs. Okay, so I'm going to set the leg cuffs aside for now, and I'm going to work on the waistband. Okay, so for our waistband, now what we're going to have to do is finish quartering our waistband. We already have 2 points of our quarter from our side seams. So to easily finish quartering, all we're going to do is match up these side seams. And as we line this up here, there you go, line this up. We're going to make a little snip with our scissors to indicate the center back. And we're going to line this up here and make a little snip here with our scissors to indicate the middle front. Okay. Now that we've done that, we have 4 points on the opening of our joggers and we have 4 points on our elastic. So it makes it really simple to just match up these points, and I'm going to use pins to match these up. Match up these points to our quartered points here. Okay, so we're going to match up the back part with this little snip, and I am going to pin this because it makes it easier when you're attaching the elastic, when you're stretching it as you sew it on, to have pins and not clips, because clips can pop off whereas pins, well, they don't. So I'm going to use these pins. And you'll see we're going to have a good bit that we're going to have to stretch as we start to attach this band. There it is. Pin that one, and then our last seam here. Perfect. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be serging or sewing this using a zigzag stitch, and we will stretch the elastic as we attach it. We'll do the same thing with the leg bands. So I'm actually going to take the pants over to the serger and show you guys as I attach this waistband. Okay, so here we are. I'm at my serger. What I like to do is start at the back, and I've got both of my needles all the way in the up position. I am gonna take out the pin that's all the way in the back, and I'm going to slip this all the way underneath of my raised presser foot so that I can get the middle back all the way under my needles. All right, now what I like to do is I like to work in the quartered sections. So I'm going to grab a hold of the place where this needle is here, the first needle. And what we want to do here is we want to stretch the elastic, but we don't want to stretch the pants themselves. We just want to stretch it enough to flatten the pants. See that? So there's a little wrinkle there, but these pants are flat, and then we're going to serge this on. I changed my stitch length on my serger all the way to 4 because it is, you know, stretched. So once it kind of goes back, it'll look like it's a lot closer together. And it can tend to be a little bit bulky if you have a shorter stitch length. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. See, we're just attaching this, and you wanna just be right up to the edge of your knife, okay? You wanna be right up to the edge of your knife. You don't wanna be cutting anything off. You don't wanna cut off any of the elastic. And I'm gonna pull this pin out, and I'm gonna stitch up to that first point. Okay, now we are almost, you see under the first point is right underneath my presser foot right now, right? I like to use the clear one so that you can see. And I will remove the pin, and I will go to the next point. And all I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna stretch this back out, and I'm gonna straighten my my fabric so that it is flat, and I'm gonna keep serging. All right, now I am to the midway point. So I'm gonna go to the next quartered point. I'm gonna pull my pin out, and anytime you pull your pin out, you know that you've got the point that you marked with your little marker, and you know, your side seam or one of your little notches to look back on if you need to. I'm gonna keep just serging this on. And then we're gonna get right back to the end, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna overlap here. We're gonna overlap our stitches. Okay, so I cut off the little tail, and then I'm just gonna turn my knife off just in case, and overlap there. Then I am going to raise up my needles all the way in the up position, turn this to the back, and serge off. Okay, so what we've got here is, see our band, our elastic is serged on all the way around. This is what it looks like on the inside. And what we're going to do next, I'll take it over to the cut mat to show you, but we're just gonna flip this over. And then we're gonna top stitch this down. So let's go back over to the mat and take a look at this. Okay, so now we've serged our waistband. It's a little trickier to see on here because we do have the white on white, but we've serged our elastic band onto our joggers. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our pins, and we are going to attach. We're gonna flip on the, we're gonna flip this over, and what I like to do is I like to attach the pieces like where they're at, the quartered pieces. I like to pin those right where they're at before we take it anywhere else. So find this, there we go, there's the midway point right there. So I'm gonna flip this right over and pin. I'm gonna do the same thing. Here's the side seam here. And what we're doing here is we're just kind of like making sure that we're gonna have equal like fabric stretch representation when we go to top stitch this. And you can cut this off because you are gonna top stitch over this. You can cut this off, or you can tuck the tail however you want. I'm normally like pro tuck the tail, whether that's with a nitpicker or something else, but I do tend to skip that step when I've already kind of done it. So, or I'm gonna stitch over it, if that makes sense. Okay, so now taking a look here at, looks like I'm maybe, let me move this over a little bit here. There we go. So I'm not a perfect seamstress, so I do sometimes make little errors, and I might have made a little error when it's attaching the elastic. Yeah, there we go. All right, just kind of want to make sure you have an equal amount of fabric all around here that will be stitched when you top stitch, right? So I might have missed the seam up a little bit. So I scooted a little bit more fabric here especially when you're first starting a seam. Like when I was attaching this, I might have just like not stretched quite enough. But it's not enough to mess the garment up by any means, but you do want to make it look like you've got plenty of like, what do you call it? I don't know, wrinkle, I guess, in the waistband, you know what I mean? So I did scoot a little bit of fabric that way. And that's just kind of personal preference. And then what we're gonna do next is we're just gonna take this to our cover stitch and we're just gonna do a top stitch all the way around here. Okay, so the last step of top stitching our waistband, I'm gonna do it on my cover stitch. So I'm going to take out the pin in the back. So I've got the back middle here, and that's where I like to start. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to place this back middle all the way underneath my needles. And I find that I'm going to lower down my presser foot, and I find that it works best for me if I pull to stretch from this side, but also pull the fabric through on the back side. So while I am stitching, I am going to be pulling, which is not something you normally will do with any of your garments. Okay, so let's keep that in mind when we are doing this, is that we're going to be pulling back to stretch, because we want this to lay flat when we're stitching through. Okay, but when you're pulling, you'll work against your waistband and against the machine unless you are actually on this side pulling the fabric through as well. So let's do that. I'm gonna go really slow. And you see, as we adjust here, I'm gonna straighten and flatten this side out. I'm gonna put my hand back here. I like to use my thumb to keep the fabric flat too. And then with my pointer finger, I just guide that right through. And then as we go, we'll just take out the pins, holding each different place. And the waistbands, this obviously, since this is a newborn size, the waistband is teeny tiny, but he'll usually have more than a few little stitches in between pins. Okay, and as we get back around, I am going to trim this. Those are our starting threads. And all we're gonna wanna do here is just overlap. Okay, so this is what the inside of the waistband is gonna look like once you've got it top stitched down, and the outside looks like this. Super cute. I did do the contrasting thread. If you're a beginner, I would recommend doing a matching thread because it's super easy for this not to end up straight looking, okay? So our last step then is to attach the leg cuff elastics, and we'll do those the same way as we did the other. So I'm going to pin these in place and then get these attached, and we'll be ready to go. Okay, so once you have it pinned in place, I'm just gonna pin these 2 spots. I'm gonna take it back to the serger and I'm gonna stretch it just like this and serge right around. So we'll be serging the edge here right onto the elastic, okay? Okay, now that we have attached the elastic, that wasn't pretty attaching the elastic to the newborn size. These little, I mean, you can see how small this is. It's like tiny. The last step is to turn these and to top stitch. And since I already showed the top stitching, I won't show it again on this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me lay this out and show you what it looks like. So we're gonna flip these like this. So you've just flipped it one time. So you've got it, this is how it's sewn on, and you just flip it over one time. And then you do the same thing as we did on the waistband, where you stretch it out and you top stitch it on. So that's what they're gonna look like on the inside. I'm gonna go ahead and go top stitch these, and when I come back, we'll have our finished joggers. Okay, so I've top stitched down our cuffs, and I will say, or our elastic ankles, and I will say in the newborn size, this was difficult. So maybe if you're just starting with the elastic, don't try newborn size first. But let's flip these out and see what it looks like. Right side out for our full finished project. Oh my gosh, worth it. You guys, okay, it's a little crooked. You can see I did have a little bit of trouble, but oh my goodness, look how cute these are. Totally worth the struggle on the ankle cuffs there. I'm so glad. I almost changed my mind and decided to just hem these, but I love the little gathered look. And the baby that's going to be in these is going to be so cute. No one's even going to notice that this is crooked a little bit. So I love it. These are adorable, and I'm going to be making the Denali oversized tee to match these. So y'all stand by for that. I've had so much fun making these with you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you followed along step by step today while I made these Jasper color block leggings, if you followed along with the step-by-step tutorial, so can you. See you guys next time. Bye.